When I first started running 4 years ago, I used to find it hilarious and ridiculous how runners would have more than one pair of shoes. 2 pairs, 4 pairs, 8 pairs. It's kind of ironic, I have 8 pairs of shoes on the go now. But now coming into my 3rd marathon prep, I now know that having a good shoe rotation is vital for unlocking performance and avoiding injury. But what exactly does a good shoe rotation look like? Well, I'll show you. Perfect rotation. Now obviously, I mean, how many pairs of shoes should you have? What kind of shoes should you have? How often should you replace them? And the super shoes, the key to your marathon PB. But to understand that, first we must understand why rotating works. Follow me. Now there's absolutely nothing stopping you from wearing just one pair of running shoes throughout a whole marathon block. But let's say you do. 2 things will happen. You rapidly age your shoes and you reinforce bad habits. On how you rapidly age your running shoe foam, let's remind ourselves of how running shoe foam works. So when you hit the ground, the big plushy midsole absorbs the force of the impact instead of your body. The foam springs back as you push off, giving you a boost that propels you forward. And that foam is at its most effective when it's able to instantly spring back to its normal foam. Over time though, that natural spring ability deteriorates as you expect. But that deterioration accelerates if you don't give your shoes at least 24 hours to recover. This means that you shift the shock to your shins, feet and knees, and you're expending more effort in each stride. Now on to reinforcing bad habits. So rotating shoes really does keep you on your toes. So every shoe is slightly different, and basically every time I change shoes, my brain has to make like a micro adjustment to adapt. In fact, a study of 264 runners found that rotating shoes reduced injury risk by 39%. So producing totally different gait patterns and different muscle recruitment. And all this means your form isn't sleepwalking into injury. But on a more positive note, rotating shoes does make training so much easier by matching the correct shoe to the correct effort. So yes, you could use a pizza cutter to slice a watermelon, but there are more suitable tools. So just like running fast intervals and a track in Super Plus shoes makes practicing that fast turnover of feet a bit harder. Now we understand why it works, dead foam, bad habits, matching efforts, let's build up a marathon ready rotation. Now I'm going to break my marathon shoe rotation into 4 simplified types of shoe. A daily, a speedy, a race, and a recovery. So first and foremost, the daily shoe. So this is going to be covering the bulk of your marathon mileage, and if training correctly, will be done at a nice slow and easy pace. So I look for a decent amount of cushioning here, but also versatile enough to have a little kick of speed. And that is why I love the On Cloud Surfer Free. So it sounds like an ad, it's not. So these make the easy miles easy. They're really cushioned, and they also have a nice kick of speed in them. So when you do your strides in them, they are a treat. And the second shoe is a speedy shoe. So these are for your tempo and your intervals and your hills. So these are going to be a lot less cushioned than your daily shoe, but as a result, they're lighter and they're going to be a lot snappier at speed. So this is why I love the Puma Nitro DV8 Freeze. These are super light, super cushioned, super snappy, super grippy, super everything. Yeah, I love these shoes. Really good for tempo sessions. And then there are recovery day shoes. So think of these like a big comfy sofa to absorb the stress of life. So these are exclusively for use on the slowest runs after your hard workouts, so the day after. So I would only really use these if you train 6 or 7 days a week. If you don't, then don't bother. But if you do, a popular choice on this is the Nike Invincible. And then there are race day shoes or super shoes. So if you look down at the start line of any major marathon, you'll just see a sea of super shoes. Adios Pros, Nike Vaporflies, Nike Alphaflies, On Cloud Booms. But are they worth the hype? Well, research thinks so. Studies show that super shoes can improve running economy by up to 4%. So surely they're a must in any rotation. Well, to understand that decision, an expensive one, we must understand why they're much faster than normal shoes. So there are 3 defining parts to a super shoe: the carbon plate, the super squishy foam, and the rockers. So the carbon plate acts like a lever, creating a spring-like effect which propels you further forward. So it makes up for the lack of spring in your metatarsal, reducing the amount it bends. This reduces the amount of energy needed to push off. And then there's the foam. It's way squishier and more responsive than the foam I was talking about earlier. So basically, when we squish it, it springs back with so much more energy. And then finally, put together, there is the rocker, which just simply rocks you into a more optimal toe of position. So put together, you can maintain much harder efforts for much longer. Now, the promise of faster efforts for much less effort is tempting to train in them all the time. But remember that super shoes are literally putting your foot into an unnatural range of motion in the name of optimal efficiency. So if you're not training in them that much, should you just invest in them for just race day? Well, that depends on 1, your budget, and 2, your commitment to this hobby we call running. And that's a double whammy really, because the stiffness in the plate and the responsiveness in the foam is really time limiting, so it limits its useful life. In fact, researchers found that after 280 miles, 450k, a super shoe has lost 2.2% of its efficiency, whereas in the same time period, a normal shoe hasn't lost any of that efficiency. And even major manufacturers admit this. So with the On Cloud Boom Echo Freeze, the box literally states good for 4 marathons. That's £55 a marathon, or £1.31 a kilometre. But what about quote unquote normal shoes? Shoe manufacturers say that they last around 300 to 500 miles. That's 500 to 800 kilometers. But remember, they're in the business of selling you more shoes. So what does this number depend on? Well, it depends on stuff like the shoe type, the running surface, your running style, and your weight. Now, a better way of knowing when it is time to replace is to look out for these 3 signs. So first, is the tread looking noticeably worn? 2, is the midsole sagging such that when you push in, it doesn't spring back with such vigor as it used to? And 3, are the shoes starting to feel a bit uncomfortable, or God forbid, you're feeling pain? Now, if you train through these red flags, remember that the impact through your joints will increase, which increases the risk of injury. And you'll also lose some forward propulsion too, since when you press down into the foam, it doesn't rebound as lively as it used to, a bit like how fast you used to rebound back in the day. Anyway, to bring this all together into some sort of strategy you can implement into your own marathon prep, I'm going to share what I'm doing in my marathon prep. So I have 8 pairs on the go, a bit extreme, I know, but 3 pairs are on the way out. So these New Balance 1080 V12s have done about 950k. These Nike Pegasus 39s have done about 780k. And these Adidas Adios 6s have done around 700-ish as well. So 2 pairs are fairly new. So Puma Nitro 3 Deviates, I can never get the order right, and the I was going to call them On Cloud Booms, they're not that quick. On Cloud Surfers, these are both relatively new. So I've introduced these into my rotation at the same time as keeping the old boys on the go. So it's a bit like, introducing some excitable puppies into the mix when you know your old dog's going to die. Bit dark? Yeah, bit dark. So I use Strava to track mileage on all of my shoes, so attributing the right shoe to the right run. And after about 300 miles, that's 500k, I sort of pay a bit more attention to how do I feel after my run in the shoe. Am I feeling a bit more pain? Do I feel like there's less cushion? And yeah, I just keep on asking that until the red flags start to appear. So I've retired shoes all the way from 600k to 1000k. So it's a sign that really going off of feel matters, and shoes do really vary shoe to shoe. So the main thing though is I try to avoid wearing the same shoe on 2 consecutive days. So research shows that a shoe will take at least 24 hours for the mid-foam to fully decompress. So putting this all into practice, you know it's one less thing on the injury risk worry list, because that's the main thing for a lot of runners preparing for a marathon. Yes, you've got to get into condition to run 26 miles really fast, but the main outcome you're looking for is to get to the start line in one piece, and rotating shoes helps you do that.